Today, I'm joined by my friend Kristian Stott, who has worked in tech and property for a number of years. Kristian, thanks so much for joining us.
It's a joy.
Thanks,
Good morning.
mate. I wanted to initially just find out a bit about you. So talk to me a little bit about your career to date.
Started in big corporate tech, global corporate tech.
Yep.
A long time ago. When I did a degree and needed a job.
Sure.
So the first one was delivering curry, which was all right, but
I mean,
it was hard work.
Yeah.
Trying to do a degree with that. So I fell down the agency rabbit hole and never really came out. I've done other things while I was in that journey, working either with my own IT businesses or with other prop tech companies or technology. But, you know, it's always been ostensibly because quite genuinely looking to work whatever that thing was back into the property space has always probably been my sort of mental journey through it.
I met you probably 5 years ago, I would think.
Sounds about right.
At a conference or somewhere. And then we've sort of crossed paths a couple of times. You've done some work with us in a couple of guises. And I've always found you to be reasonably knowledgeable about the property market. So talk to me a bit then.
Can we water it down further than reasonable, or
no? You're good. You're good. You're good. I asked you because you're good. A lot of people will know you in the property space nationally. You're sort of a reasonably well-known individual across sort of estate and letting agency. Why do you think visual media has become so important for property?
Visual media has become so important for everything.
Yeah.
And you know, communicating through visual media is ubiquitous now, not just over that sort of singular platform that we were used to as children. The capacity to produce visual media and deliver it to an audience is now entirely liberated.
Yeah.
You know, if I'd have said to you 20 years ago, you're going to launch a business and you want to get it out to consumers, and that means you've got to do TV advertising, that is epic. Major deal, huge amounts of money.
Yeah.
Production cost, delivery cost, incredible. Whereas now you can deliver video as anybody about anything to anybody, absolutely free.
What's interesting is that despite that, the demand for quality visuals has increased.
I agree. I don't think it's necessarily to despite it. I think that it's complementary to it in that people are saying, well, this is either from a brand or from an audience expectation, or because they're monetizing the production of whatever they're doing,
sure,
that it's more appropriate to do it at a higher
standard.
Yeah.
With a lot of businesses, all they talk about is themselves, you know, and they talk about, and that quite rightly, they need to do a proportion of their marketing where they are actively selling their service or their product.
I think some of it depends on the service and the product and the audience. So let's say I sell, for example, athlete's foot cream.
Sure.
There's always a need for athlete's foot cream.
Yeah.
And the audience is reasonably easy to find.
Yes. Anyone with athlete's foot.
Which is really quite a lot of people. And the context is always immediate. If you have athlete's foot, you don't want it anymore. And therefore you can produce content about your product aimed at really quite a wide audience to take their problem, show how you can fix that problem, and give them some form of call to action or route through that result. Estate agency isn't like that.
No.
The context isn't immediate.
No, it's a service, and it's a
service you only need
occasionally,
infrequently.
Yeah, like a legal service, or maybe a financial service, or a wealth management service, or anything that's once a year, once a 5 year, once a 10 year, maybe once a lifetime.
And if I'm in that space, you know, if I've got a dilapidated 3-bed terrace at say 100 and something thousand pounds, actually I've got quite a lot of immediate need, quite a wide audience, because I've got investor buyers.
Yeah.
If I go above that to family homes, my need diminishes slightly, or the audience diminishes slightly. If I go above that to 500,000-600,000 pounds, you know, your big 5-bed with a swing-in drive, it diminishes even more. Once I get to 4 or 5 million quid,
your market is mini.
It's tiny.
Yeah.
You know, and the context is tiny.
Yeah.
And so I think with that type of product, because agency isn't isolated, you know, look at a lot of luxury goods, you know, the cost of a luxury good, the aspirational journey you go through to go and buy a luxury good, whatever it might be, is longer, and you keep it longer and you look after it and take care of it because it's lovely.
And crucially, you spend more time thinking about the purchase.
Absolutely. One of the, again, contentious things is that estate agents don't sell houses. They sell houses for people.
Yes, correct.
Not necessarily 2 people, 4 people.
4 people, yeah.
So in terms of how they advertise what they do, they are trying to say to a potential seller that if you were to sell, you ought to do so with me.
Yes.
Now, some of that is done through the production of good visual content, not necessarily just video, but good visual content. And some of that is done through being present in their lives. Now, the for sale board was the traditional presence, the sort of flag in the ground.
Yeah.
I don't know if you may or may not notice, Matt Nicol, agent in Worcester, just done the most wonderful thing of organising like what the Americans call like a yard sale or a garage sale, where, you know, got loads of local people to do a garage sale with his brand all over it. I mean, what a fabulous thing to do. And I think that probably pushes us to the next part of that conversation, which is if you don't always deliver visual content around your product, how do you provide nourishment to the person on the other end, which they will be subliminally or openly grateful for?
They talk about what they sell or they talk about what they do, but they don't talk about how they do it. And I think the how is really important, and the why. Property and video content, property and visual content are synonymous and symbiotic. You cannot have, in my opinion, a successful property company in 2023 without having standout visuals. You just can't.
I believe you can have a more successful business in any industry
if you've got
by using visual content.
Yeah. Effectively.
As well as possible.
Yeah, effectively.
As well as it's possible for you, perhaps. We spent a lot of money on good equipment.
Yeah.
And we did that with a strategy, with a vision in mind. We knew what we wanted to produce. But obviously, the in particular, the local competitors, they were the first to really pick up on it because they stalked us.
Yeah.
They thought, well, we've got to do this too. And so what we get, I mean, the best example was a guy who wanted, there was the most wonderful staircase, and the staircase kind of had a reveal at the top into a sort of master suite. So, bless him, he thought, right, I can really do this by walking up the stairs and revealing. What he didn't sort of consider was the fact that because he either hadn't had his Weetabix or ridden his bike for a while, he couldn't get up the stairs without changing his blood pressure. You know, this guy was so overwhelmed by this staircase that the camera was all over the place, and all you could hear was panting and heavy breathing and him trying to talk about this beautiful bedroom. You know, so that's probably the cost of doing it for free or doing it as cheaply as you possibly can.
Yeah. And
I guess you could say it's damaging. I think there's people that would argue about that. If you look at this self-branding, online selling now through media like Instagram and TikTok, actually any video will do, just shoot the content.
Yeah.
Just get it out there.
Yeah.
And you know what? It works.
It does work. It does work. And I agree that it works. And actually for me, the more people that are making content for the business, the happier I am. It doesn't really matter to me how they're making it, because I know that at some point in the future, they will get to a position where they say, this is great, but we've grown to a certain level. We could do this better, or we could do this nicer. And then it leans into the conversation. For me, I think that just starting is really important. And I would encourage every business. I've spoken to a few. We were part of an awards process recently where we were judging for some awards categories. And we went to see a lady and we just said to her, look, are you making any video for your business right now? She was a new startup, web, and she was like, no, I'm not. I said, look, just try some. She was a florist, actually. She wasn't in property. When you've got a bouquet or whatever, just do a little visual around it. Flowers are beautiful, just like food, and it always sells. And she put some stuff online, and she's seen a return already. She made 3 bits of content on her Instagram stories, and she saw a return. Now, I know at some point, her business is going to get to a scale where she goes, do you know what? I actually feel like we could do something that's a bit more visually strong or visually impactful, and something that maybe talks or leans on our brand more. Maybe we should have a bit of a profile built about our business that we can then use to put on the internet. We could put it on our website.
Because I've learned how to do it, can afford to do it to a higher standard.
Correct.
Have proven it in the audience that I was looking for.
100%.
So I saw one yesterday, and I won't mention her name, but it's a high-profile LinkedIn trainer. And one of the things that she's doing, which I think is part of a bit of a movement on LinkedIn in particular, is humanizing that work personality, bringing out the real you.
Yeah.
And then on a LinkedIn, unapologetically put she'd done a video to herself before bed, having had a couple.
Mm.
And it really was, she put this video on there and it was just gold.
Yeah.
Because if you think about one of the things that we buy trust. We seek trust. We demand trust. We don't commit fully in the absence of trust. We kind of half buy things and we don't, commit. And I was watching this, I was thinking, you know what, whether it's fake or not, I don't know, but I feel like I'm starting to know the real you, and the real you is someone I will spend money with and I will trust because I believe in it. This nourishment process of using video, actually, every agent, and we're not just talking about estate agency, any industry has the capacity through brand nurture and cadence to tell customers all of these things up front. And video, there could not be a better medium. If I want to put a shelf up, right?
YouTube.
Yeah, I can phone someone and they'll say it was 200 quid. I'll be around in the morning.
YouTube.
Yeah, a lot of the content you see is free and it's a gift and it's non-associated. So a lot of people give you the information as knowledge without there being an insistence at the end of it that this knowledge only applies to this choice you can make. So when you do your DIY video on your lamp, it doesn't say, these instructions only work for lamps bought from IKEA.
Yes.
It doesn't say that.
No.
It says this is pretty much any lamp. And I guess electrical standards are standardized, but the same with an estate agency. If the content is purely education, it doesn't necessarily say you only ever get this from this one.
No.
This is what you should be looking for.
Yeah.
Ask them the question. Demand that they prove to you that this is one of the outcomes they achieve and how they achieve it.
Yeah.
So that educational journey means when that rep arrives and does the pitch, the customer knows how to buy the thing they're there to buy.
Top 3 tips then for businesses getting started with visuals.
For me, the first thing was why.
Yeah.
Why are you bothering?
Why are you bothering it?
Yeah. I think the second thing is, what do you expect to happen, or do you wish to happen?
What do you want people to do as a result of watching your content?
Yeah. And then the how-who
Yeah.
of, if you know why you're doing it. So let's say let's talk about estate agency. I'm doing it because I want a level of visual media to be available to an audience across this area.
Yeah.
And this area actually was the
Geographical
property
area,
market.
Yeah.
We then broke that down into different layers of property market. So that was our why. That was why we were doing it. The what did we expect to happen was actually complex for us, because we didn't expect to put a 3-bedroomed house on a video on the internet and the phone to ring off the hook with people saying, can I see that 3-bedroom home? We didn't expect that. And we didn't necessarily say that as our what we wanted to happen. What we wanted or expected to happen was that people recognized us as being a good kind of business that was delivering good stuff, and it looked good and it felt good, and therefore, write your own story. They must be professional. They must be quite deliberate about what they're doing. They must be a good player in their marketplace to be able to do these things.
Okay.
The what and the who came rather naturally, if I'm honest with you, because the why was pretty well defined. And then the what we expected to happen, and I suppose the who and the how of that, was like, well, if we expect to have people appreciating a product, a property, then we need a good narrator. We need a face for the business, a mouthpiece. And that mouthpiece needs to know their stuff. They need to be expert, and they need to be practiced in delivering that information. No one wants a video that drones on and on and on and bores the hell out of them. So the who and the how was, well, which people represent which areas of our messaging and the thing we deliberately wish to say best. And then how do we get them to do it? Now, our biggest challenge was actually scaling it up, in that we had made a commitment to the aesthetic and the quality of what we were doing, and we had one videographer. So, at that time we were completing on 100 properties a month, which meant going into the top of the funnel was probably a couple of 100 properties a month. We couldn't deliver video at the quality we wanted for all of that. It just wasn't possible. So we had to be quite selective about which property product we wanted to talk about and how much time we were going to leave over in that month to have messaging and quality content about educating customers, the variety of what we did for a living, and how it would be hard for them to see that, and how we could tell them that that's what we did. So those are my top tips.
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time today.
It's all right.
And I wish you every success.